The following slides are designed to help you to revise for the Supplementary examination of Change Management. Please look carefully at these slides and think about how you might use this in preparation for the exam in May. Choosing a topic is really important as part of your revision. Look at the topics that have been presented on change management and make sure that you choose one that you have a personal interest in and that you have enough material that you can actually revise this completely. One of the best tips I think I could give you is to look at previous exam papers and analyse the topics that have been chosen or the questions that have been chosen on the topic that you've identified. Look at the way in which the questions are asked, look at the key words, the concepts that are indicated, and try to orientate your revision so that you have good coverage of that topic area. It's also good to do some practice. Just look at the previous questions on previous exam papers and see if you can actually do some of the questions. Try and answer them fully and make sure that you've answered the question that's being asked. Use the module guide and use the readings that are contained in the slides. The lecture presentations have got lots of links to other resources and you should actually utilise these. Don't restrict your revision to just the sources that have been given on the programme in change management. Do some of your own reading and research so that you can develop a really good understanding of the topic that you've chosen. As part of your preparation, you should revise the lecture notes and slides for the topics that you've chosen. But please be aware that this is only a starting point. You do need to do extra reading and research around those topics to ensure that you have generated enough material that you can answer a question fully. There is the textbook that you can use, and there are specific chapters. For example, communication is a topic that you might wish to look at. Chapter 11 in the textbook by Hayes has got good coverage of this particular topic. So please make sure that you look at the various chapters and revise them thoroughly. We also did a reading for each of the topics that were presented on change management in 2015. Please make sure that you look at the reading for the particular topic that you've chosen. It's always good to have examples, and I would recommend that you look at the case studies that we researched to see how they could help you to support and illustrate your analysis. As mentioned on the previous slide, additional materials from your own research will be extremely helpful, as they will help you to demonstrate that you have actually done wider reading and that you understand the topic thoroughly. Examples, case studies, these should be used to support the discussion and to help you to illustrate your understanding of its application to contemporary work organisations. I would like you to look very carefully at this slide. This demonstrates the features of a good quality examination script, and it's most important that you aim to achieve these characteristics. A good exam answer would demonstrate knowledge of a range of concepts and theories associated with change management. This means that for each of the topics, you demonstrate that you have read and understand the applications of these theories and models. It's recommended that you would cite key authors and you would apply these models to the question that has been asked. A good exam script will have questions that demonstrate analysis, synthesis, and application. And you should note that these should be applied to the question asked One of the weaknesses of many of the papers that was presented in the previous exam was that students tended to download theory that they'd learnt without actually applying it to the question that had been asked. This was demonstrating rote learning rather than understanding. You need to make sure that your answers are well structured and your ideas are clearly expressed. There should be a clear flow of ideas as you work through the answer to the question. Good scripts demonstrated evidence of background reading beyond the lecture materials. This meant that students were well prepared and they were able to adapt the material to the question that was being asked. Examples and case study material can be used to actually enhance the analysis and to develop your arguments, particularly in terms of supporting and illustrating how models and theories are applied in the real world. Remember time management. You need to do 3 questions and you need to submit full answers to each of those questions. Poor time management is one of the key areas where a number of people fell down, where they were just not answering the full number of questions. So please make sure that you manage your time and spend 40 minutes on each of the questions that you're answering. Please look carefully at the handout that was given in Lecture 10 on the Change Management Programme that dealt with academic writing for examinations. This handout is extremely useful because what it does is to highlight the writing skills and the features of a good answer. What I would recommend is that you go through each of these and ensure that you can tick the areas where you feel that you perhaps need to develop your own writing skills. This could then be applied to some of the practice answers that you complete as part of your preparation. Do look at this carefully. There is a lot of good advice on this handout that will help you to structure and present a well-formulated answer to the exam questions. Just to remind you, there will be 8 questions on the change management paper, and you are required to answer 3 questions from that choice of 8. All questions are equally weighted. That means that they all contribute the same amount of marks to the overall paper. This is a 2-hour examination, which means that you should aim to spend 40 minutes for each question that you're going to answer. Again, time management, I need to reiterate and re-emphasize, is really important. So make sure that you watch the time very carefully and that you present a well-balanced paper with equal emphasis on each question. The next few slides are very important. They highlight some key areas for revision. They'll give you a little bit more focus than just a topic area. The first area for revision relates to some of the barriers and problems in implementing organisational change. We looked at several different models that will help you to answer a question on this particular area. I would draw your attention to Kurt Lewin's force field model of change, where he highlights driving forces and restraining forces. The restraining forces are what are referred to here as those barriers and problems. So look carefully at different models that will help you to understand some of the problems that prevent leaders and managers implementing organisational change. The second topic on this slide is conflict in organisations. And conflict occurs in change situations due to a variety of different issues, particularly different stakeholders, different agendas, and different interests. Please look at the lecture slides, which highlight a number of sources of conflict in organisations in change situations. So you need to have a clear understanding of why conflict occurs and how it can be managed. A particular reference here is understanding different styles of conflict resolution. And one of the case studies that we did was to look at your own style of conflict resolution and the way in which that might be implemented in an organisational change situation. In the lecture slides, you'll see a link to a video on conflict resolution styles. It is strongly recommended that you look at this video as it has a lot of information about how these styles are relevant in a change management situation. There are 3 areas for revision on this slide. The first one deals with the way in which individuals experience change in organisations. The notion of personal transitions is introduced in chapter 13 of the course textbook, and you should look at the Hayes textbook to get further information on this particular model. Personal transitions are different for each individual, and particularly important is an understanding of how managers can facilitate the transition process. So you should have a good working knowledge of the model and also an understanding of strategies for assisting individuals to move through personal transitions. The second area for revision on this slide is looking at approaches to implementing change. We looked at 2 approaches to implementing change. One was the soft approach and the other was the hard approach to implementation. I'd recommend that you look at business process re-engineering as an approach to change, and there is a good overview of this in chapter 21 of Hayes. In addition to this, there is a journal reading that we used in class. You should look at both the chapter in Hayes and the journal reading, and also do your own background reading and research. The third area for revision on this slide is dealing with the difference between management and leadership in a change situation. So our understanding of management, which is around policies, procedures, and control in a change situation, contrasting that with leadership, which is very much more about creating a vision and engaging followers in a change. So you need to understand the difference and particularly focus on the reasons why leadership has been seen as a very important aspect of change situations. There is an article on leadership and management that we looked at in class called Change Management or Change Leadership. You should look carefully at this, and you should also do your own background reading and research. On this last slide, there are 3 more areas for revision. The first one is looking at communication strategies for organisational change. It's looking at the various components of a communication strategy, and there is a good overview in the Hayes textbook, which is chapter 11. In this, it looks at various components of a communication strategy. So, for example, talks about direction of communication, it talks about the role, it talks about the channel. So do have a look at the model and see how a good communication strategy can actually enhance organisational change. The next area for revision relates to different types of change. And right at the beginning of the change management programme, we looked at something called discontinuous or frame-breaking change. There's a good chapter on this in Hayes, which is looking at patterns of change. And in this, you should look at the Nadler and Tushman model of different types of change, with particular emphasis on what they termed recreation. So some useful background to understanding wide-ranging, discontinuous change, which is sometimes referred to as frame-breaking change. The textbook is helpful, but there are other readings indicated on your slides which you should have a look at. The last area for revision is regarding organisation culture and change. And organisation culture is a very important dimension of a change situation. One author who's particularly influential in this area is Edgar Schein, who demonstrated the different layers of organisation culture and the importance of understanding those layers in terms of a change situation. So, for example, it might be very easy to change the artifacts or the symbols that an organisation uses when facilitating change, but basic assumptions and values can be a major resistant to change. So I've highlighted a number of areas, and I'm going to open up a discussion forum in the Canvas area. So please, if you have any queries, could you post up your questions in the discussion area? Best of luck with revision, and hopefully there won't be too many problems with this, and you've got enough information to assist you in preparing for the examination. Best wishes from Julie Hartley.